Okay, I'm Carol Lisbon, Chair of the Dover Planning Board. This is our meeting of February 12th, which I'm going to call to order following the guidance issued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in March of 2023 regarding the open meeting law. This public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing the Zoom video conferencing technology that is available through the agenda on the Dover website. I'm going to call a roll call to get this started. Carol has been here. Jody Shu?
Here.
Scott Friedman?
Here.
Okay, that's our quorum. We also have Val Lynn, who's an associate non-voting member of the planning board, town planner Jasmine Farinacci, our assistant town administrator Sue Hall, and I will introduce everybody else when we go into executive session. So the first item of tonight is an executive session, and I will be making a motion and then do a roll call vote for that. I move that the board enter into executive session to return to open session for the purpose of discussing the consideration of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property in regard to Hale Reservation conservation restriction. Further, as chair, I declare that an open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the town. And I will now do a roll call vote to go into executive session. Carol Lisbon, yes. Jody Shu?
Yes.
Scott Friedman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We're now going to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
I'm just admitting Patrick O'Shaughnessy and Joyce Hastings. They'll
Okay.
just take a second to come on. And Joyce is presenting the 54 Farm Street. Patrick is working on that as well.
Okay. Wait for them to get in. And Joyce is still connecting. Okay. Joyce, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
There
Sorry,
you go.
my computer was
Great.
acting up.
Okay, well, Joyce and Patrick, I don't know how long you've been in the waiting room, but if it's been more than 5 minutes, we apologize for the delay. But we were in
Okay.
executive session on the Hale conservation restriction. So thank you for bearing with us and coming on now. This is agenda item number 2. It's a site plan review for 54 Farm Street. And I will turn it over to Joyce or Patrick, whoever is going to be presenting this.
Sure. Would it be all right if I share my screen?
Sure.
So we have filed a request for a preliminary site plan review to reconstruct really a garage on 54 Farm Street. And this is the property here. It's 20 acres. This is Farm Street, and it's accessed. It's about 3,400 feet from Farm Street down an easement. So the property sits in this area here with the houses in the front location. And this is again, Farm Street is in this direction. So there's a garage already that sits in this area right here, about 217 feet off of the property line in this direction here, and considerably more from the other property line. And what the proposal is to demolish the existing garage and to reconstruct a new 40 by 28 garage in that similar area. Excuse me. The existing driveway will be utilized to access the garage. It will, the only areas where it would be revised is just to access the garage doors. But that's really, it's a pretty straightforward application. We have this particular property has an existing house and a barn, and a pool, and this, the materials will be disposed of off-site appropriately with a demolition permit through the building department, and then constructed again in the same spot. And that's pretty much it. If you all have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Any questions from planning board members?
I did not. I'm just opening it again. Sorry on my end. I'm looking at the elevations and stuff like that. I know, I appreciate the packet. Does it,
Sure. So there's
I'm looking. Go ahead, Joy, sorry.
So I was just showing the elevation.
Oh, you brought them up. Okay, great.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just opening them on my, okay, thank you.
So
How big is the existing garage versus what's being built again? I think I saw that somewhere.
it's just slightly smaller than that. It's
Smaller.
if you can look at the if I zoom
Yeah,
in here.
The existing is essentially it's going to be 4 feet longer and 3 feet deeper.
So yeah,
So,
in the
I mean-
in the longer part comes, so you can see it matches the stairs. So
Yeah,
the proposed garage matches the length of the existing garage, and it's just a little bit wider on
Deeper.
each side.
Got it. Thank you.
we're enclosing the stairs. So right now they're the existing one. We explored kind of salvaging it if we could, but the problem is like there's no footings underneath the foundation or the slab, so that it's really structurally not best. So therefore, we're proposing to. Well, the demolition permit has been issued, but at least from the building department.
And what would be on the second floor? You said you were enclosing the stairs.
Just mainly for storage up there. So there is the barn that's there as well. So she is gonna have, she has 2 horses.
Okay.
So she has a bunch of equipment, but there's not much storage up there. So she's proposing, and there's within the existing house, it's funny, but there's not a ton of storage. So she wanted the extra storage up there.
But it's not living quarters.
No,
No.
there's no plumbing, no.
Got it.
No.
Yeah, no running water out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Val, you always have good questions. Hit us. Come on, uncover
No,
something.
I think this looks very straightforward.
Exactly. You're like our eagle eye.
Joyce and Patrick, that's the ultimate compliment that you've put together a good plan.
Seemed pretty straightforward.
It is.
Well,
Very
and it's a very large lot, and it's very far from property lines, so
Yeah.
that helps too.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to
So I
say
have
it's
no
all in
other
the
questions.
plan, but it's not really all in the plan. Sorry. Thank you.
Are there any other questions then from planning board members?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay, Jasmine, you want to very quickly go through your preliminary approval decision?
Absolutely. Okay, so as Joyce just covered, this is an existing garage, a 2-car garage that's being replaced by a new 2-car garage, essentially in the same footprint of 40 feet by 28.3 feet. The property will look the same as it does currently from the road, as it's replacing an existing garage. It complies with all dimensional requirements for a 2-car garage.
Sorry,
There'll
is
be
this a
minimal
2 or a 3? I see 3 in the elevation.
3, yeah.
It's a 3.
Oh, is it 3? I apologize. I
3.
changed that to 3. We'll do that here.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm sorry. The dimensional requirements for a 3-car garage, the existing driveway will be minimally disturbed by the proposed work. Is there has to be some work done on where the bays are in the garage, but there's no work being proposed at the street or the rest of the length of the driveway, only where it meets the garage. The existing parking is adequate for the single family use. The garage provides an area for parking and loading. There is no proposed landscaping or fencing with this project. It is just for the construction of the garage. It's unlikely it will have a detrimental impact on the surrounding areas, as it's consistent with the neighborhood and applies to the building code requirements. The design is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. It will not have impacts on natural resources or groundwater, as it's replacing an existing structure similarly in kind and size. The proposed structure does not impact town resources. It's consistent in quality and appearance with the existing home and complies with the requirements of the zoning bylaws.
Okay, thank you, Jasmine. Any further questions or comments by planning board?
No, thank you.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to make the following motion. After considering the application and other materials submitted at its meeting of February 12th, 2024, the board makes a motion to approve the plans entitled Proposed Garage Plan 54 Farm Street with the following conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, minor modifications to the site plan may be approved administratively by the planning board chair. 2, any future modifications to the site shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board. And 3, the lighting on the site must not spill over onto any adjoining property. Do I hear a second?
Second,
And I will take a roll call vote. Jody Shu,
approve.
Scott Friedman,
Yes.
and Carol has been approved. Okay, Joyce and Patrick, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have
you
a good
very
night.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening, and thanks again for waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 3. Gee, we're just about on target here. Agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes of January 8th and January 22nd. Jasmine, if you would just put up January 8th.
Can't see it, Jasmine. I'm not sure.
Oh, you can't? Okay,
No.
Oh, we were, yeah.
sorry.
Nope.
About now?
Almost.
There
There
we
we go. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
So I hope everybody has had a chance to review these. Are there any comments or edits to them?
I do not have any comments to this one.
Okay. Okay, so if not, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 8th as submitted. Do I hear a second?
Second,
All in favor, Jody Shu,
yes.
Scott Friedman,
Yes.
Carol Lisbon. Yes. Okay, and then we go on to the January 22nd minutes. And we do have a
Sorry.
change based on a comment from Jody. We go down to, yep, there we go. So in item number C, did not make a distinction between town meeting and the public hearing and bylaws and articles. So Jody, does this meet your requirement?
That will include by the concerns about any ADU regs. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on those minutes, January 22nd? Okay, if not, I'm making a motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd as amended. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay, a vote, Jody Shu,
yes.
Scott Friedman,
Yes.
and Carol has been yes. Okay, so we're done with the minutes. Okay, now we're going into town planner updates. So stormwater management bylaw.
Can everyone see this?
Yep,
The stormwater, okay, perfect. Okay, so obviously Kevin McCabe was very kind to send this out to us to review. And he anticipates having a public hearing on this. I'm sorry, he anticipates reviewing our comments in 2 weeks. So we need to get these back to him as quickly as we can so that he can get to his public hearing process As far as I'm aware, he has every intention of still having this on this town meeting warrant. So I just wanted to run through a few things that I thought were applicable to the planning board, but please feel free to stop me as I'm scrolling so that we were not having to jump back and forth if there was a section in it that you thought was relevant that I happened to overlook. So the first section is essentially going through definitions, which all look very standard to me. None of those stood out. The responsibility for administration, which points out the Board of Selectmen. I believe the previous versions had this as the planning board was more involved, but Carol has stated that since she's reviewed this, they've taken the planning board out of an authority role since the last version. I didn't see the initial version, so I can't compare. So I'm sorry if you have any questions about this version versus the original. The regulations begin here. Discharge prohibitions, which again, all overviewed by the town engineer, Board of Selectmen, and the Director of Public Works. This one I highlighted because I thought it would be something just of note for the planning board that any discharge from dechlorinated swimming pool water may be drained from the pool as long as the water is allowed to stand for 1 week. I haven't seen any applications for above ground pools, but it's something that we should keep in mind if that's something we see at some point in the future, because I believe they do drain those more often than in-ground pools with the winter. So we're going back down to erosion and sediment control, where I start to see things that would impact the planning board. And again, in my notes, generally all of my notes that if this bylaw is approved, that these would be things that we should condition on future applications. So future applications that are changing an existing grade of more than 5,500 square feet or 25% of the lot should have a condition that the project falls under this section of the stormwater bylaw. The same thing for clearing existing vegetation, storage of more than 100 cubic yards of excavated fill, removal of protected trees. And again, this isn't something that the board has to administer. It's not in our purview. It's just something that we may want to keep in mind for future construction, to keep in mind as we make our conditions if this gets
Jasmine?
approved at some point. Yes.
I don't know if you want me to jump in and talk about some of the discussions that I've had over the week, or
Carol,
that
what's your
the tree
purview
committee.
on that?
Jasmine, I'd like you to finish up with your review,
Okay.
and then we'll get into to Val and the tree committee.
Perfect.
Can I just ask one question about that business of erosion and sediment control? Is that something that the oversight, I know we mentioned at the top of this that it was the Board of Selectmen, but is that like the building department is responsible for reviewing before,
Mike
on
Angieri is.
Mike Angieri?
And,
Okay,
and the Director of Public Works as needed, but it will be all, Mike Angieri reviews all the stormwater management plans, so all the SWIP plans and the MS4 all go through Mike Angieri.
and does that all happen before clearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's supposed to,
It
in an ideal way.
so, well, I think the way it goes right now, Jody, is that there is no erosion control bylaw that we have. So right now, they can clear first and then submit their plans. But I believe that this bylaw will change that so that they have to submit the plans first before any clearing happens.
Mm,
Yes.
that's a big change.
Mhm.
Meaningful.
It's probably one of the most meaningful things in the
Yeah.
document.
That's going to be a really interesting educational process, I would imagine.
I would
It is.
imagine it's going to be very difficult, and there are going to be lots of issues with it not occurring until people get
One of
used to
Mike's
it.
biggest items every week at our land use meeting is his struggle to get property owners to comply with erosion control and erosion control management on sites that have been cleared. So I think this is something that will be extremely beneficial to have him review beforehand, so that way they understand the sediment control measures they have to put in, and they can be put in properly, rather than now we're halfway through the winter, the ground is freezing, water is just completely deluging off these sites and creating awful flooding
Mhm.
in neighboring properties. So I think this will be really helpful if we can get it passed. So again, activities addressing the an existing grade or removal and existing vegetation on any parcels greater than 44,000 square feet. This is something that should trigger a condition in our decisions. Activities meeting any of these requirements, so the changing of the existing grade, section 1 through 6. And jumping down to,
This is robust.
it is, but it's not any more robust than I've seen in neighboring communities.
Yeah. No, it's just, I mean, it's very comprehensive. I mean that in a positive, complimentary.
Right.
And
Another
it's
area.
robust, especially in consideration that we'd have so little.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is going to be an interesting one at town meeting.
Yes. Yes, I think it will be. It's going to be interesting, I think, to try to prove to people that this is protecting them rather than telling them what to do on their own property. And I think, to me, that's the hardest thing to convince people, is that we're trying to keep your best interest in mind, not trying to tell you how to manage your own property. Those are usually hard sells in my experience,
But it's actually
So-
also not just about protecting yourself, it's about being protected from your neighbor,
yes,
which I think would be the
exactly.
sell.
Yes, exactly. I think that's the sell, because so many people in town have experienced that,
Yeah,
or have believed they're experiencing it.
I think Val has been sent some wonderful pictures from down off Glen Street, I think, of the impact of not having any
Yeah.
erosion control prior to something being clear cut.
yes,
Mhm.
I'd like to see those. Wow,
Yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully Kevin utilizes all of those pictures to his best ability as he tries to get support of this bylaw. So any person conducting land disturbances that disturb a disturbance greater than 5,500 square feet, any increase in flow to municipal storm or sanitary sewer systems, or activities that modify an existing drainage system. Again, just conditions that we should consider for projects of this size. As we're going through, we can't enforce any of this as a planning board, but we can condition it that a stormwater management plan or an MS4 plan will be required for a project of this size under this section of the bylaw if it's approved. Here they break down major and minor projects. So major projects must comply. Minor projects have an ability to submit an operation and maintenance plan, and they may waive certain aspects of the stormwater management plan. If it's a minor project, that's the purview of the town engineer. It's not our purview, so it would be something that we would just go by how they define major and minor projects based on the size of it, 1 acre disturbance of 1 acre or more. So we just be careful in our conditions that either it does require or may require, however we would like to word that. And then this is, here it's in compliance with EPA. Provisions do not apply for less than 1 acre. So again, another condition that sites qualifying under this section of this bylaw have to meet those standards.
Wait, sorry, back up. The Conservation Commission? I thought it
That's
was,
not my highlight. Anything in green is Kevin's highlight, so I didn't highlight that. So I don't know if
Where are they-
he had these highlighted for a particular reason.
okay.
They're highlighted for specifically because this draft was done by Tata and Howard. And Tata and Howard has highlighted, I think it was all in green, the areas that they want the town to decide upon.
Oh, I see.
Kind of
Okay,
over
yeah.
the
Okay,
purview
so
of
this
the
is still
engineering
undecided.
consultant. Right.
Okay.
Oh, Lord, okay.
And then I believe that's it for my comments. Did anybody get a chance to review this, or do you have any questions on the document as it sits generally?
I'm sorry that I did not have a chance to review this document deeply enough, but I also know that Val has. So,
So, and with that perfect segue.
Do you want to let me? You can share your
Are you
screen, Val,
ready?
if you want.
I'm like
Ready
scared
and
of this
waiting.
one.
So Okay, so I met with Mikey and Jerry last week, and I met with Kevin McCabe, and then our tree committee met on Thursday. So we have gone over this multiple times, trying to figure out, there's two things. The first is, of course, what's the best thing, you know, for Dover? But then the second thing is, how do we get it passed at the town meeting? And so we've actually tried to kind of relax. I think we're trying to relax some of the restrictions so that people can feel comfortable with this, so it's not jarring. The way it's written right now is that any protected tree, which is going to be 4 inches in diameter,
God.
which is consistent with the Conservation Commission, would be under the purview of Mikey and Jerry or Kevin McCabe.
Any
So
tree that's 4 inches wide is protected?
is protected. Yes. So let me pull something. Is it okay, Jasmine, if I pull something up?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm just gonna pull up the edits that I put in, because I want to point a couple things out. So jurisdiction, here it is. Okay. So this is the erosion. Our committee really just focused on the erosion and the control sediment, erosion and sediment control bylaw piece. We didn't look too much at the other pieces of the stormwater management because that's really Mike and Jerry and Kevin. But we wanted to make sure that the erosion and sediment control piece was reasonable. So couple reference points. So 5,500 square feet is larger than the garage that was just proposed to us in our site review plan. So it's, I believe, it's about a 75 by 75 square foot area, which is quite large. Most septic systems for 5-bedroom septics are about 3,400 square feet from what I could find. So this is, you know, this is a fairly reasonable, I think, square footage area before this would get triggered. So that's for point 1 and 2. And then in point 4, initially they had it listed as 32 inches, either in aggregate or single tree would be protected. So we think that that's a little too stringent. I think we're going to run into a lot of pushback. So we're suggesting anybody who removes 50% or more of the protected trees on their lot would trigger this. I haven't
How would a
gone back.
person know what a protected tree is?
So it would, so that's another thing. This will require anybody who's doing construction or removal of a lot of trees to actually have to look at all the trees on their lot.
Oh my
And
God.
they may have to measure and identify them.
How much do you think
So-
that costs a person?
So the way that we're trying to make it happen is that you can go out and do it yourself with the tape measure, and we will have a formula. So it's basically, you take the circumference, you take a tape measure, you wrap it around the trunk of the tree at 4.5 feet high. So if it's, I don't know, 32 inches wide, circumference of 32 inches, then you divide that by pi, and that is your diameter.
Got it.
So we're trying to make it so that you don't have to hire people to do this. The thing that I think we're going to have to pull out is it's also requiring on the plan, I'm going to just move down here briefly, that under number 5, it said it wanted the species and the canopy drawn to scale. That's where I think we have to
Oh my
pull that
God.
out. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think that we should be making people put in the canopy.
no.
And I'm actually okay if we don't even have them put in the species right now, as long as we just get an idea of the size of the trees. And the reason, so So that's kind of some of the edits that we're trying to pull out to make this a little bit more palatable.
You also changed section 18A at the bottom there with the acreage.
Yes, yes. So, so that those are, okay, so that's under jurisdiction. And so I just want to be clear that for somebody who wants to go out and cut down a tree that's about to fall on their house or that is in decay, does not have to comply with this. Those are things that people can do that will not trigger this. This is really about large construction projects or removing 50% or more of the trees on your lot. So those are kind of the trigger points that would activate this. So if we go down to the erosion and sediment control plan, the other piece that we were trying to kind of back up on is under section A. Instead of having a project of minor significance be basically an acre or less, our suggestion is, can we make it 2 acres or less? Because there are many lots in Dover that fall within that under 2 acres. So we were trying to kind of make this a little bit more palatable that way as well.
Wait, sorry, you're saying that if your lot is under 2 acres, then the rules don't apply?
No, so this is for the plan. If your lot is under 2 acres and you have over 5,500 square feet of disturbance, maybe you're building a large, barn,
Yep.
horse barn, maybe it's a larger than a 5 bedroom septic, then this, or maybe it's a really large pool, then this would apply. But what you would have to put on your plan, so this is about the plan, would be less than the things that you have to put on your plan. So it would be less engineering for a minor plan than it would for a major plan. And the minor plan would be for somebody who's on less than 2 acres. The major plan would be for somebody who's on 2 acres or more. So there would be just some additional things that have to be shown on the plan if you have a larger lot. So, and that would be more the contours and the topography. Water courses, bodies of water that are nearby your home, significant roads or other geographic features. So all the things under B would have to be in addition to what's under A. So for example, if you have, if you want to build a horse barn and you have a lot that is greater than 2 acres, you, according to this sediment and erosion control, you would show all of the items on your plan that are under A, which are pretty standard for what people have to show. And then in addition to that, you would also have to do what's required under B. And it would just be, to me, the biggest item is number 5. You have to have an NPDES filing and permit, which I think is actually a state mandate. I think we do that now, don't we, Jasmine? Doesn't Mike have to require that now for anything that's 2 acres and over?
I'm not sure. I would have to ask him where the threshold is now. I know it's not for every lot, but I don't know if it starts at 2 acres or what it is that triggers that requirement.
I will, I'm planning to have a follow-up meeting with Mike. So maybe we can do that together, Jasmine.
That would be great.
And then, so that's kind of for the plan. The third piece, we're going to go down to performance standards. Is for those trees that are protected. So, and this is, again, protected trees are going to be for the majority of the lot will be under the purview of Mike Angieri and Kevin McCabe. So they will make the decision of what trees can be removed for the project and which ones need to remain for a project. And for those that remain, what we ask in the performance standard is that some sort of protective measures implemented to protect the root system of those trees. And usually what that means is they'll put up like a small fenced off area around, and it can be like it can be with ropes, it can be with plastic fence, you know, we can decide this with Mike, but a circle around the tree, usually around where the drip line is of the tree, to protect the roots, so that during construction, for those trees that are being retained, they don't get damaged to the point that they die within a year of the construction.
Well, I guess this is an area where like if the true goal of this erosion control is to stop developers from clear cutting their land, then doesn't root protection of trees you're trying to keep seem a little bit like Big Brother is all over your property? Because to me, like if you're trying to keep the trees, you're trying to keep the trees. You don't want them to die, and presumably you have the smarts to protect the roots. It feels like it's getting like something like that feels like expanding the scope of what the original goal of this was, which is to prevent clear cutting. Just off the cuff, admittedly not understanding this bylaw well enough, but like all the preventing of clear cutting on lots, which can be damaging to neighbors, makes, I understand. But when it comes to like requirements around protecting trees that you're already not chopping down because you presumably want them, you would just do that because that's good sense, right? Why would you want to kill trees that you're trying to keep?
Well, you would do it if you were doing construction on the property that you already own.
Okay.
But I had a developer tell me that it's ridiculous not to prevent clear cutting down to the property line because the trees are going to die anyway. So why not just take care of it now?
Okay. But you're saying that if you're going to keep a tree, you have to do this stuff, right?
So yeah, so what this is saying is, so what happens sometimes, Jody, is when you have developers come onto the site and you say, okay, we're going to keep this oak tree over here. But what they'll do is they will excavate right up to the base of the tree. And it basically destroys the roots of the tree. So therefore the tree ends up dying anyways. And then the developers are like, see, we should have just taken it out.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess the question is like, the question is, this is all meant to prevent developers from doing what we don't want them to do, right? How does it impact the homeowner who is now maybe unduly burdened by this bylaw?
So again, it would only be if the homeowner is, you know, let's say they're building a fairly large pool.
Yeah, but that happens, right?
Right. Yep. So, and what it's saying
sports
is,
barn.
Yeah. And what it's saying is, you know, we get it. You can take the trees down for the area that you need to build that sports barn or the pool, but we're asking you to leave the other trees outside of that construction area and protect them so that you don't have erosion and runoff going into your neighbor's property. So rather than clear cutting, you know, a backyard to do something, it's trying to be a little bit more thoughtful about, let's not clear cut the whole backyard to put up your sports barn. Let's clear cut what you need. Let's clear what you need to clear to build it, and, you know, try to preserve some of the areas around it. The way that this is written right now, there's no mitigation that they would have to do. So the way that this is written right now, which is another question I have from Mike, is, okay, let's say somebody wants to build a sports barn, they build it, and they end up taking a couple more trees than what they had originally planned. So, or what they had originally agreed to or discussed with Mike. The way that this is written right now, if it's not in the setback zone, there's really no mitigation that needs to happen. So it's not clear to me what Mike is able to do or what the town of Dover can do to stop that, to change that. Right? So under the next section, under tree mitigation, the only place where we're requiring mitigation to happen is if it happens within the setback of the property. And that's because that's where you start running into issues with the neighbors, right? With the budding properties. The thought is if you can at least retain some of the trees and some of the natural resources in that setback area, it starts to either slow down water running to the neighbors' properties, it can slow down erosion running into them, and it starts providing a buffer between your property and the neighbor's property versus clear cutting right up to the property line.
Yeah.
And to the point that Jasmine made, because Mike and Jerry made it as well, the problem is if you have a fully wooded lot and then you remove all of those trees, your neighbor's trees are going to start dying as well because those trees have been growing together in groups and they
Right.
protect each other. So when you start clear cutting right up to the property line, you now put the neighbor's trees at risk as well. So this is trying to create a buffer so that not only do you not, clear right up to the property line and risk, in some cases, people have gone over the property lines and actually cut the neighbor's trees. But now you've also allowed for kind of that natural cluster of trees to kind of remain to protect each other. So you hopefully would have less loss, especially impacting your neighbor's property. So that's kind of what this mitigation is about.
Gotcha.
It's about the way it's worded is it says any removal of protected trees within the setback zone. And we just use this for simplicity's sake, we use the same setback zone as the dimensional requirements that we have right now. And that
It's
they
funny,
have,
this is a small point, Val, but I think I'm misunderstanding. Like when I think of within the setback, I think that's your building area. But I think what you're saying is that it's the area between the road and like, say it's a 30-foot setback. It's that 30 feet.
yes, the setback is between your property lines in toward the middle of your property. So if it would be 30 feet starting at like, a side property line, and then you take 30 feet in toward your
And that's
property.
where your building can start if you were putting it right up into the setback line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
okay,
can
got it.
start at like, say 30 feet from your
We're
property.
saying in that 30 feet zone.
Yeah, is where we're saying if you take trees out of this area, which you can, because there's going to be situations where people will have to, right? So we're not saying that you absolutely cannot take trees out of that area. It's just saying if you take trees out of this area, then we ask that you do provide some mitigation to do some replacement. And, we're asking that they be replaced, preferably somewhere also within that setback area, but somewhere on the property. And then it talks about usually a common replacement equation is 0.5 inches of a tree for every 1 inch that you remove. So if you're removing a 4-inch tree, you'd be replacing it with a 2-inch tree. And then, or you could also, if you just can't, if there's nowhere to place those trees on your property, you can also contribute funds toward a Dover tree fund. And then those funds will be used to plant municipal trees throughout Dover. I think the concern that I anticipate is the fact that right now, the way that this erosion control plan is written is that it covers the entire lot versus just the setback.
Yeah.
I think the setback is more palatable. Mike Jerry was pretty adamant. He really wanted it to cover the whole lot. So that's why we haven't pushed to take it out, but I'm very interested in your thoughts here because I'm certainly willing to push harder to say, let's have it just focus on the setback and not the entire lot in an effort to get this passed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I totally understand why, like, theoretically Mike would want that
Mhm,
and why, like, we all should want that,
mhm,
in the macro
Mhm.
sense. But I also think that that will really rankle some people to
mhm.
have um, a whole layer of what they perceive as extraordinarily burdensome requirements placed on the building site
Sure.
beyond, I think the setback makes a lot of sense. And I keep thinking about it as a homeowner, and I understand we're really trying to think about it as a preventative measure vis-a-vis developers. And I
Right.
really do appreciate that. So it would be a very particular way of communicating about this.
Right.
Because otherwise it would feel like kind of like, get off my property. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I can see getting that feedback.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
We all keep in mind the town meeting 2 years ago when Concom wanted to increase the no disturb area, I think by 50 feet or 100 feet,
Yeah.
and that got just turned down.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And also
Not
when
a
I saw
bad-
Concom on here, I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
don't make them the body.
Yeah. No, I think that actually can come off. I don't think that's necessary. I think
Yeah.
Concom automatically has the ability to look at this stuff as part of their Concom duties. I don't think it needs to be on here.
Well, again, I think as consultants do, which is why we should all come back as consultants in our next life, they just cut and paste from everything that's been paid for by other towns.
Exactly.
So at least what they've done is not be too disingenuous on it, and they've highlighted in green those things that they know that are specific to Dover,
Totally.
right?
Yeah, I just think it instills people like, oh God, it's going to be an arduous process. More arduous than what we were intending when we were trying to think about
Sure.
erosion control.
Well, we're trying to merge two independent activities in town. Kevin has to do an MS4 stormwater management bylaw.
Mhm.
We were working on a
Tree
on
bylaw.
tree bylaw that
Yeah.
also, so much of it, relates to erosion.
Yeah.
So it sort of made sense to try to get as much as we could into this one.
Mhm.
And then the tree, whatever gets into this one, assuming it gets approved, then the tree committee will be taking a look at all those recommendations that the Conway School did and see what's left.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That might be a standalone bylaw,
Right.
Yep.
which is
I know.
why
I just don't want you to get buried, Val, underneath
I
this.
know.
That's my
Okay.
worry.
I hear you. So
So-
if we took out, I'm going back up to the jurisdiction. If we took out the tree piece here and left it just as, well, because you still have number 2, which is clearing of existing vegetation of more than 5,500 square feet.
like, let's just take, for example, you've got a 8-acre parcel, you've got a house, you've got a pool, you've got a garage, and now you're going to put up your sports barn. Okay.
Mhm.
And you're just a person in Dover.
Mhm.
And your sports barn, maybe it's going to have an ADU, whatever. It's like you're doing a big job. And now you're out there measuring tree inches.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I get it because we need trees. Like, I so get it. I just wonder if, well, maybe not on the upside, maybe people won't pay attention. But I think if somebody pays attention, that's going to rankle people in Dover.
Yep. I hear you. So maybe we take out all the tree pieces with the exception of just that perimeter thing. Because if you're an
Perimeter.
8-acre, if you're an 8-acre person and you're just putting in, a sport court or something,
Right.
it's unlikely
not-
you're coming
yeah.
close to that perimeter.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of do think that might help you out a little bit. Like, I just worry about one loudmouth making a big fuss.
Right. I
Because
fully
we're not
agree.
really worried about developers. I mean, we are because we have them. And what we're really trying to do is to manage the perimeter so that we have not big clear cut lots running down to our streets and flooding our neighbors. Like that to me is the fundamental, like what is our biggest goal? Like
Right.
focus on that, because again, we can always we can keep nibbling away at this.
Yeah.
But I just hate to see like one aspect of this sink it.
Right. I fully agree. So, okay, I agree. So,
Like I can tell you this, if I had to go out there and measure trees on my property because I was putting up a pool and a thing, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm not touching my perimeter. I don't even want to see my neighbors. And now I have to
Right.
measure 3 inches. I'd be
Which-
annoyed by that.
which is exactly the way I think we have to sell it is not only does it help you have privacy,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah,
But I
but
don't
it-
want to like have to go measure trees and come up with all
Yes.
sorts of like canopies and things like that on my plants. It's all already
Yes.
expensive audio engineering. And it's like,
yes. Okay. So remove, yes. Yeah. I'm with you.
So what this conversation has shown is that we need to keep it really simple.
yeah.
We need to keep it a couple of small bites.
Yep.
And keep track of the bites that we'd like to see over the next decade put in,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And how does this get explained and who explains it? This is a stormwater bylaw that is required by the Department of Public Works of the town of Dover.
Mhm.
It's not a planning law board bylaw.
No.
Ken McCabe, as a staff member, is not able to, normally, is not able to make the presentation. Jim Repetti is sometimes allowed it by vote, I think, or by his discretion. So is it the Board of Selectmen that present this? And read the slides that are put together by a team of folks from the tree committee and the DPW. So they're, in addition to working out the terms, which I think, will go a long way to the meeting. I think it's on the 28th of February. But we also have to start thinking about, 2 weeks after that is the open hearing. And
I
what is
guess, are you
said and
asking who
said-
presents like possibly Val? Is that what you're asking?
Well, it's not a planning board. It's not a
Yeah.
planning board article, and I don't think planning board should present.
I don't either. Because also, I mean, if there's a legal, like, if the DPW has a legal requirement to do this, but we're throwing in some tree stuff, they're gonna have to make that kind of clear, aren't they?
I would think so, and common sense would say, how could you have an erosion control required bylaw and not talk about trees?
Right, exactly. Like, it makes sense that way, but I would say, yeah. I feel like this is not a planning board bylaw and that's gonna be interesting.
Yep.
Mhm.
So is the Board of Selectmen the like owner of this bylaw? Because it's like a town,
Well, DPW reports to the selectmen, so
Yeah.
yes. in that
so it's a
sense it is.
selectmen's bylaw. Got it.
I think it's something that Val and Jasmine are going to have to talk to Kevin and Mike Blanchard about.
Yep.
And figure all that out. Sort of phase 2 once but it's gonna have to be done in parallel because of the timeline.
Right.
It's taken us 13 months to get draft 2 from Tater and Howard.
Right. And also, to be fair, when we think about the many priorities,
Yes,
for, the investment of time in the lead up to town meeting for the planning
Mhm.
board we just want to be careful about, Jasmine's time, I think, given our other priorities as well. In terms of,
exactly. I mean,
putting
yeah.
us into a leadership role on a bylaw that is not ours.
exactly. And and Val and the tree committee are providing an incredible amount
Yeah.
of content and policy
amazing.
leadership. And that should be sufficient. Right. Okay, Val, do you have
Wow,
enough
wow.
sense? Scott, do you have anything to say? You've been quiet.
No, just listening. I mean, who do you think the options are to present this, if not the Board of Selectmen?
Well, there is a methodology, and I just can't remember the details to it of the town moderator agreeing to allow a town employee present. So that's something that has to be looked into, in which case Kevin could do it.
Got it.
Hmm.
Is he also like technically the arborist? Am I remembering
He's
that
the tree
correctly?
warden, yep.
He is, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Okay, well, it's time's moving on, it's 9 o'clock, so Val, I hope you got some
Yes,
some
great.
good stuff.
Thank you,
And,
Val.
Thank you.
know,
Such amazing work. Wow.
come back to the planning board when you and the tree committee have more, and of course, we'll all be at the three of us will be at the February 28th meeting anyway, so. We'll take it from there, and we'll update everybody at the March meeting or before if we need to.
Sorry, can you just remind me what's on February 28th? Am I missing something?
So February 28th is a meeting with the stormwater team.
Oh, okay,
Not
got
the
it. I just
planning
didn't
board,
have
sorry.
anything on my calendar. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
you
no,
said
no,
we'll
no.
all be there. I was like, oh,
February
no.
26th is the planning board
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah. Got that one. Okay.
Okay, ADU regs.
Okay, so I believe this is very similar to what the board had seen when Laura Harbottle was still here working on this, and all the credit of this goes to Jody and Laura because they literally already had this draft ready, and I just formatted it to fit the regulations. So we're proposing this to be chapter 240 under the planning board rules and regulations. It's not an existing chapter in our regulations at this time. So this is beneficial. I mean, so that works out. So we just changed the top two to read the same way as the other regulations do, that the Dover Planning Board has adopted this chapter with the following objectives: to provide clear guidelines to facilitate submission applications to section 185-43 of chapter 185 zoning, and to provide for the orderly administration of the accessory dwelling unit applications. So then it goes on to list the procedure for site plan review for the attached accessory dwelling units. We have this little blurb paragraph here, just saying before any application for site plan review is made, to discuss with the building department, the building inspector, and to determine which review is required. Walter will have, excuse me, his own application that he's working on now at the building department that sort of breaks down this essentially same information for applicants on the process of how they go about the review. They have to go to Board of Health first, and then to the planning board, and then to the ZBA, depending on the application. So it's just breaking down the procedures in connection with site plan review for attached ADUs. They have to consult with the Board of Health first, which is just the first logical step. If you can't fit a septic on the site, then there's no point moving forward. That's why we have them as the first point of contact. It would be a shame to have them go through a site plan review and special permit process just to find out at the end that they don't perk well for a septic tank or something of that nature. And then the submission of the site plan review application under the ADU bylaw, and it goes over the application for the planning board, completed signed application form, deed, detailed plot plan, floor area, when the new construction is proposed, 3 paper copies and electronic copies, provide the building inspector and Board of Health Conservation Commission with copies of the application. That's the applicant's responsibility. And then the review by the planning board. Then it goes down to break down the procedural for application for detached accessory dwelling units. So I did send this to Alan Fryer for review, just to ensure that he is comfortable with our mentioning the zoning board of appeals here. He said he would review it, that he has a large case coming up. So I said it's just this bottom section of it, and said I would appreciate his time if he has a moment. I also sent it to Nina just to make sure. I just asked her, should we just remove zoning board of appeals from this language entirely, not even mention them in this process, so that way it doesn't appear that we're making any regulations for them. And then we just state that for a detached dwelling unit to follow the same steps as provided in the provision above.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for putting that into that format. So I have just a couple of questions. Thanks for mentioning Alan Fryer. I also wanted to just make sure that we're sending this to the Board of Health, because the only, and I know we've spoken about this in the past, but that business of the Board of Health shall provide us with a letter. maybe it's a Nina question, maybe it's a Board of Health thing. I'm assuming they would be happy about it. But I want to just make sure everybody's comfortable with that language.
So what did we have in the bylaw? Do you remember? Because the regulation basically is just the next layer down from whatever's in
Right.
the bylaw. So if the bylaw said shall, then this needs to say shall.
Well, I guess what I'm referring to on the shall is that they shall provide us with a letter. I'm pretty sure it says that, right? That they've reviewed
Yes.
it and we keep that on the file. So let's see. Scenario review.
So B is attached, right? If we just go up a little bit, Jasmine.
It says site plan review. I don't think we did talk about this. I have to remember. I
Yeah,
can't
I know,
see.
exactly. Is there there a commonality in D? Was there a D that sort of, here we
Something
go.
about- Board of Health. There it
Right.
is, 3. For any renovations, oh,
Shall obtain
we just
all
said they have to do it. And that was Board of Health language they asked us for, but I'm saying in the reg, it's very specific. It says they go there first, basically, and then they get a letter from the Board of
Yeah,
Health, and that the Board of Health shall.
provide.
And that's the question that
We
I,
change that to may, the Board of Health may provide a written memo.
well, I mean, I prefer it to be shall, because I think, that was the whole point, like, we want
Right.
something, but I just don't know if we can shall another board.
Well, Jasmine, why don't you just talk to Jason about it?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's leave it at shall, because I think shall should be shall, right?
And then just to confirm, Jasmine, has Nina reviewed this?
Yes.
Okay, this version,
This version, yes.
and she had no comments?
Oh, I'd have to go back. I think she did make some comments, but they were very minimal.
Have they been integrated into this?
I believe they have. I'd have to go back through my emails to check. Off the top of my head, I don't remember when
Okay,
that
yeah, if you
was.
wouldn't mind checking, just so that we can be really sure that we've captured any feedback. Because I know there have been a bunch of different versions, and I actually noticed that on one of our meeting minutes that it said that, we had received feedback from Nina to the ADU reg, and I'm not clear what version she had responded to, so I want to be really specific about that. And then the other thing is just, what was Walter's take? Because I know he had his version with the diagram and stuff like that, and
He was
we-
just trying to create an application, so something for when somebody came to the building department to apply
Okay.
for an accessory dwelling unit. He was just creating that as part of his application
got it.
process.
So he wasn't
explain what-
suggesting that was the reg.
No, no, he
Oh,
just
okay, so
was creating an internal
that makes more sense.
process.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he's fine with this. I take it. He's reviewed it.
Yes, absolutely.
So Jasmine, I just have one thing. If you go down to page 2 to BC, B to C. There you go. I don't know what that step 3 is. So I don't see a
Well,
step
this-
1 or a
Oh,
step 2.
because
Yeah,
I
step
got
has
rid
to
of
come
step
out.
1 and 2, yeah.
Yeah, we used to say step
Thank
1,
you,
step
yes.
2,
Right.
step 3.
Yep.
Okay, then, assuming all those things we cross our Ts and dot our Is on, then I'm fine with that. And I know that the next step is to present this at the February 26th open hearing, public hearing, whatever it's called. And I know, Jasmine, we had a little bit of a back and forth about that. What is the expectation at that hearing regarding this? People will have had access to it? Is this like posted somewhere before that hearing?
Yes, so we'll have it. I can post it on a planning board webpage. I just have to ask Felicia if she's comfortable. Does she typically? I'll have to ask Felicia if she typically posts these as well. And the public hearing notice that we put in the paper, it says to come to the planning department for a copy.
Okay,
So we can
people could-
post that, and we can post it upstairs in the cork board as well.
Okay.
Just so it's in a public place. But I'll certainly be able to put it on the website, but it is available upon request to
Okay.
review.
and
So
then,
the legal notice, which was in the paper last week, and I think has to be in 2 weeks' papers. I don't know, anyway, says copies of the draft are available online and on file with the town clerk and the planning board. So we need to get them to Felicia anyway.
okay.
Yeah.
and
Thank
get them
you.
online.
For doing that. And then at the meeting, we'll take we are in feedback mode at the hearing. Am I right about that?
Exactly.
it's a
So
public
unlike a
hearing.
bylaw, right? We can approve anything we want.
Okay,
Okay, so this is a last chance to get
Okay.
public input.
okay,
If there's no public input, then we could actually vote that night to approve
Okay.
these. If there is public input that we think we should consider and think about, then we can move the approval to a subsequent meeting.
and then would we have another open hearing?
No,
It
Okay,
would be a
got it,
continuation
okay,
of the public, you would just
Okay.
continue the public.
continue it, right, yeah.
perfect. Okay, so Jasmine, you had sent me some slides. Do I need slides for a public hearing?
I think it just helps to summarize it and present it a little bit better, but
Okay,
it's,
so are you planning to
It's up
develop
to
those
you.
slides?
yes, I
those-
sent them to you earlier today.
Okay, so but I saw those as sort of well, I'll talk with you about that offline. Okay,
Sure, sure.
thank you. Okay, then unless anybody has any feedback, which I'd love to hear, we've been chatting amongst ourselves, so
And
Val, Scott.
Carol, yeah, so the construction bylaw, that is just intended to be like an educational exercise, correct? As
At
like
the
a
public-
soliciting feedback in advance of town meeting.
Yes, so conceptually, whether it's a regulation or a bylaw, we're getting public input.
Yep.
The difference is that the bylaw then has to be approved at town meeting, where we can just approve a regulation.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
Okay, thank you.
As long as we have a majority vote, so we need at least 4 of the members to be there on the 26th to vote.
Do we know that we have the 4 we need?
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
I'll check with Bill and George to be sure one of them will be there.
Okay,
Great. Okay, I'm gonna just for time, so let me just quickly have Jasmine talk very briefly about solar regulations.
So this is something that Carol and I just talked about earlier today. So I believe it's Lexington, you said it is about a paragraph for their small and medium scale solar regulations. And we've got about 4 pages, I think. So 5 pages. We think it would be very beneficial if we could take a large portion of this bylaw and break it down, especially these sections here for the required documents and the site being subject to stormwater review as a regulation instead of a bylaw. So we could actually
Sorry.
create,
you're saying, that's funny you say this, because I was wondering why we were calling this a regulation. So you're
Okay, so
saying,
let me step back and set the stage first.
Okay.
Okay, so we had the Farm Street, that large,
yeah,
okay, Farm Street solar array. We discovered that we really had nothing in our zoning bylaws that gave us any kind of guidelines and boundaries for approving that. So we said we really need to do something. So Jasmine took the large scale bylaw that we have, which was done so that we could build the solar array at the transfer station. Okay, and basically cut and paste most of that into a small and medium ground mounted bylaw that you see in front of you. Okay. Now, so we have tended to have long and complicated bylaws and very few regulations. And if you think back to our construction hours bylaw, I think the first draft was 2 or 3 pages. We're now at 3 or 4 paragraphs. And it's something that Nina reminds us of all the time. So, Lexington, for instance, has a 3-paragraph bylaw that basically sets the stage for regulations. So why put into a site plan, why put into a bylaw all the documents that are needed for a site plan review? That's the kind of stuff that can go into a regulation. All you do is say in the bylaw that you have to go through site plan review per the regulations.
right. Yeah, no, plus then it's easy to change.
And it's easy to change, exactly. So so that's where we are.
so we think we could break this down into a smaller, more manageable proposed bylaw and a larger regulation.
Okay.
Okay, we do have some philosophical issues that we need to get some input on. And for some reason I can't find. Solar by, oh, here we go. Okay, so Jasmine was able to present to a council on aging the last week. Council on Aging once a month has a meet somebody in the town staff. So last Wednesday, they met Jasmine, and Jasmine did a great presentation on what the planning board does, who we are, and some of the initiatives. And she briefly talked about a solar bylaw. And there was an interesting comment by somebody who said, if I want to do I can't remember whether she used a light or a mailbox, but let's say I want to put a solar powered light at the end of my driveway. So I'm going to have a small solar panel on it. So like the light I have next to my hot tub outside. And does that fall under this bylaw as a small ground mounted solar facility?
That's awesome.
So we realize that we need to get some words. And again, the beauty of Dover is that we're so far behind the times that somewhere out there, somebody has addressed it, and there's a definition that allows us to exempt those types of solar arrays and things. The other is that to the point that Jody, you were raising before about the trees and, having to get engineers in and having somebody come in and do all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of material that's needed, engineering, electrical stuff and so forth on the large mediums, if you will. And we have a clause in here that says that the planning board may waive documentary requirements as it deems appropriate. Meaning if you take a quick look at it and go, you know what, we don't need any of this stuff, this is very clear and blah, 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 then we just go through normal site plan. Lexington has one of their 3 paragraphs says the planning board may waive any standards in this bylaw which are not reasonable as applied in the particular case or which effectively prohibit the protected use. So we have to wrestle with some of this again to make it not onerous. We're all there trying to promote solar arrays. We don't do anything to prevent solar arrays. What we're really saying is, on those like the Farm Street one, we need to have some guidelines and controls, especially along public safety, for access for the fire and so forth and so on. It also states in here, and this is one of the issues that I think we all need to opine on, I'd like to do it tonight, is it okay, do you think, to have a solar mounted array, a ground mounted array on a front lawn? Or should they be restricted to side and back? Now, the only front one that I know of in Dover, which is no longer operational, but still there, is the big property that's for sale on the corner of Dedham and Strawberry Hill, the old farm.
Yeah.
Right?
I heard of another one that's trying to go in on Farm Street down by the high school, and I can't remember where the homeowner decided to put it. But they were talking about their front yard, and I thought, well, that's really interesting, sort of like solar theology, because you could also some people would say it's kind of like windmills. Well, we all have to accept the new thing in the world,
Well,
So
and if we view ground mounted solar arrays as an accessory structure, right, then there's a setback.
yeah.
Right, we have a 40-foot front setback, I believe. So there's one on Farm Street, Joe. Do you think that would they have gotten a building permit? Maybe you can check.
I'll check in. Yeah.
Or you can check check with Walter. Or,
yeah.
So any thoughts about front lawn solar ground mounted arrays?
Or restricting it?
Or restricted, yeah, one or the other. The key point.
I think probably we should maintain consistency with accessory structures. Because if not, we're making a judgment about one accessory structure versus another. Like you can have a solar array, but you can't have, I don't know what else.
Well, a garage, well, not a garage, a shed,
A shed,
a
right?
300 square foot shed.
Oh. Huh. That's interesting.
But I
We
think
want
that's,
to encourage
think-
it, but we don't want to be in the business of making judgments, good or bad. It's almost just like, or maybe we do.
well, no, I don't think we do. The other complicating factor is that the state law makes it very clear that the state is promoting solar.
Right, so they want to.
So it's very clear, which is why I think Lexington wrote it as they did. And maybe they were required to do it, to waive any standards which are not reasonable or which effectively prohibit the use,
Yeah.
right?
You know what I'm thinking about? Have you seen, like, I've seen these where you're driving along and somebody's got one of those little, it's almost like in their front yard, in their driveway, and their car sits under it, but it's a solar, like, little roof thing to keep snow off your car?
Oh, sort of like what they did in the REI parking lot out in Framingham. and they-
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like
which is-
an
yeah,
individual homeowner can have those.
Right. But that's just a different type of roof than you would have on your,
But it's not really a
carport
building,
or something.
right, yeah,
you know? Is that a building? I guess it is. I don't know, geez, wow.
I don't know how we handle those.
Yeah, it would be considered a structure, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Maybe.
Mhm.
Our definition for structure is vague. It says something that supports. So I think that would consider, because it's supporting the roof and the solar panels above it. So I think that would fall under structure.
right.
But a fence is also considered a structure.
Yeah. But I like Jody's philosophy and approach of saying it's just consistent.
Yeah,
We declare them accessory structures and that automatically starts to clarify.
yeah.
Now it gets into the issue again. So if your house is 80 feet back and you have a 40-foot front setback, do we allow these things within the 41 to 80 feet from the road?
Well, if other accessory structures would be allowed there, how could we not?
Right.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying that.
Yeah,
I
no, right.
think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, some people would argue that we have to make these things beautiful, right? Like that, we have to change our mindset and consider them beautiful.
Well.
And yeah, I know, I agree. I'm just saying, You know, have you
Yeah, you
guys
have to-
seen the one that's on Main Street? I don't even know if it's still over there, but it was one of those flower petal things.
Hmm.
Seen those, the solar
I
things?
didn't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
No,
Is
I-
it still there, Val?
I believe so.
I think it is.
Have to
And
look.
I
it's
don't
sorta
think
like-
you can, I don't think you can see it as well now because I think the
Now with the
trees have
new
grown up
house.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of cool.
And those rotate, right?
Yeah.
They
follow the sun.
rotate
Oh,
with
really?
the
Wow.
movement of the sun. Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yes, they definitely do. Yep, they follow the sun. Kind of cool.
There's a song about that. Follow the sun. Anyway, okay. Okay, so, this is a bylaw where, Jasmine, I'll ask you. So Jasmine's gonna be on vacation the week of the 19th.
Yes.
So, she will be calling in from overseas, hopefully, fingers crossed, for the, public hearing. But Jody, you and I will have to talk about that in case there's a glitch. So when you get back, you can sort of work on this one. I think it's probably going to be sufficient for us at town, at the open hearing on March 18th to have a slide or two with just sort of the main bullet points, etc., that kind of stuff without having to get approval and all the wording. And we'll just have to work on that and make sure we do the public hearing and, back up the public hearing to the May town meeting.
Perfect. And I could have the shortened version of this bylaw with the regulations separated out for May 11th, if that works.
March 11th,
March 11th, sorry, March
Yes.
11th.
even better if you had something for our meeting with, Nina on February,
Nina?
whatever it
Absolutely,
is.
that's possible.
Yeah.
February 28th.
Yeah. Oh, it's a busy day. Okay. So that's where we are on solar.
Okay. Wow. good.
Okay, we're not going to talk about the rail trail, other than to say that, and I don't know whether Jasmine, I don't remember whether we discussed it the last time or not. Jasmine and I have met with Park and Rec. They had a warrant article. And everybody's busy trying to figure out exactly what their warrant article is going to entail. Whether it's a request for money. Originally they said they wanted to get approval to sign the MBTA lease. But if you sign the MBTA lease, then you're obligated by law to build the rail trail. But the town hasn't voted on the money for the rail trail. So it all has to be worked out. It's not clear exactly what it will be or if it will be. But the powers that be on the second floor of the townhouse are working on that issue. Is that your understanding too, Val? I assume you've been, no?
No, yeah, I mean, you probably have more information than I
Oh.
do.
Okay,
Mhm.
they haven't picked your brain yet, huh?
They met with us,
Wow.
and but they didn't provide a whole lot of detail because I think they're still working it out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, some quick updates from me. I think you all received a copy of the letter from Mass Housing approving Tisdale 2. Needless to say, the town was very disappointed, and we'll see what happens when the application comes in. You know, my feeling is, I think we made a case for the for holding off and to see what situation is like when Tisdale 1 actually gets occupied. I think Mass Housing could have said, come back in a year or something. They didn't. That will be proceeding as the developers see fit. ZBA has a meeting on Wednesday evening, Valentine's Day. If anybody wants to come, I will not be there. I think it's probably the final discussion on Trout Brook before they close the public hearing and start working on the actual orders of conditions. So that's moving along. Just to confirm, February 26th, public hearing. Scott will be presenting on the construction bylaw. Jody will be presenting on the ADU regulations. And I will present on the 53G site plan consultant regulation.
All Zoom, right? No person.
All Zoom, yep, all Zoom. It's been put in the papers, and I asked the COA to put it in their calendar as well, in their weekly calendar. And as we talked about before, Jasmine will be getting everything online as well, and making sure that Felicia has those 3 documents as well.
Yeah.
The housing diagnostics RFP that we approved and sent out, responses are due on February 19th. And there's a formal process for opening up the proposals. Hopefully we'll have several. Hopefully they'll be plural. And depending on what we receive on the 19th and so on, we may be able to approve a vendor, a consultant on February 26th. If not, then we'll be doing it at our March 11th meeting. And obviously from a priority standpoint, and it's something that Jasmine and I have been working on with the list. Obviously, the first priorities are right now, everything dealing with town meeting, which are the construction hours and the solar bylaws. And the MBA consultant contract expires the end of March. So Jasmine and Jody and Val have been working with Jeff to make sure that we get the last dime out of our consulting contract with him. And we also have Jeff, the land grant, the land consultant that we're paying for with that $10,000 grant that we received. And that work has to be done by the state. It's a state grant, so by June 30th. So that too needs to be coordinated and maximized. by the end of June. And so those will be two big things that Jasmine will be on the top of her list for the second quarter calendar year 2024. We had, in a fit of optimism, sent to the Board of Selectmen on January 9th a memo saying that we wanted to do 3 bylaw placeholders. One was the construction bylaw, one was the small and medium scale solar bylaw, and the third was this land use zoning bylaw, the one with the consultant. Obviously, we're not going to get to the land use bylaw. So I would like to make a motion to rescind the request for a land use zoning article at the May 2024 town meeting. Do I hear a
Second.
second? Any comments other than few? No,
Sad.
okay.
I'm
What?
sad,
It's sad.
sad,
Yeah.
because I
Sorry,
think it's
what was the first one? The construction was the second one?
solar.
Solar bylaw.
Oh, solar, okay.
I'm sad because I think it's a really important thing for us to be trying to find the time and space to work on. But I think with everything we have going on.
Yeah, we just
right
can't.
decision.
And like the tree thing, it's complicated, and to get
It's
to yes,
way
it's
too
going to
complicated.
require a lot of education. So, you know,
And I
maybe,
feel like
maybe,
It's one of those things we need a full year.
you know, maybe we say in June after town meeting is over, you know what? May 2025, Village Center and land use,
Yeah.
which includes housing because of the Housing Task Force. And that's it. That's what we're doing.
Right.
Okay, well, I need to take.
What
a
about
follow-up vote.
floodplain?
Huh?
What about floodplain? I think it's
Oh, you
it's
mean
gonna be
the
ready by
map?
then.
Yeah, we can spend 5 minutes on that, that's sure. So I need to take a vote to change our warrant article request. So Scott,
Yes,
Jody,
Yes.
and Carol, yes. Okay. Jasmine, I know you have a lot to do between now and when you leave. I'm quite willing just to take care of this tonight and get an email out. So I will take care of this. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And Jody, if
Um,
you have time this week to go over the slides, let me know. I'm available all week, so
Thank
whenever you're free. Assuming you don't go to jury duty.
That I'm off for 3 years now.
Thank goodness.
Hooray.
I'm off because I'm old. When you hit 70, you don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
oh, that's a good deal.
Yeah. It's the one thing I have in the plus column for being over 70. Let's see. So I think that's about it.
Carol, you were going to mention to the board about March 11th meeting?
Oh, yeah,
Rather-
thank you. Right.
Yep.
So March 11th is a regular, you know, it's one of our regularly scheduled planning board meetings. It's also the town caucus. So Val will be running again. Thank you, Val, for a 2-year term as an associate member. But she's going to be out of town, right? So you just to get me a quick bio and I'll nominate you and
Yeah.
we'll take care of it that way. I need to be nominated for another 5-year term. So but what we can do is I can just take my laptop and use the planning board office instead of the house and run upstairs when it's time to do the caucus. Take a quick break in the meeting. I think it might be easier to get a quorum if we continue to do it by Zoom rather than have everybody there.
Whatever you
Okay.
prefer.
Okay, Jody, if you're going to be around, I'd be honored if you would nominate me, I think again, maybe. I did you?
Of course. I'm
So
gonna be
maybe
around,
we
and
should-
I actually had it in my calendar that it was an in-person meeting, so I'm already planning for whatever you
Okay,
need.
good. So you and I will share the planning board office and we'll run
Sure.
upstairs and do our thing. Okay,
No
super.
problem.
So it will be Zoom, so,
Okay,
okay,
Got
so you can give up whatever space it was that we were going to have it in.
Yep.
Hey, Sue, on that topic, I don't know if this is true for anybody else, but in my calendar invite for February 26th for our open hearing, I am seeing a Google Meet, not a Zoom link. And I think I had mentioned
Really?
this before.
Me too.
I-
Yeah,
okay.
So we really, I mean, I'm sure there will be a document with a link too, but for whatever reason, the invite you sent around via
Okay.
Outlook or whatever you used is showing us a Google Meet.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Let me take a look at mine too.
And it's funny because I had the
Oh, yeah.
warrant
Yep,
and also I have the warrant committee in my calendar for, sorry, I can't see anything. The 18th.
yes,
Why
the
am I-
open hearing is the 18th. The caucus is the
The
11th.
caucus. Okay, caucus,
Okay,
caucus,
is the
caucus.
11th, and the open hearing is on the 18th.
Okay.
And,
And then we meet again as a planning board on the 25th. And
right,
I don't see in like a Google or anything.
so
Or-
I have a March 25th, but again, you're absolutely right. I never looked at it when I went into my calendar. It is showing, it doesn't show the Zoom information.
Okay.
Right.
So I
Alright,
think, well, you remember when you sent all those out?
Yeah,
I think they were all done. They weren't done with the Zoom, so I think
all
that's
right, I will,
done. Yep,
okay.
okay, thank you. Yep.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jasmine. I just got that. Okay.
Anything else, folks? Okay, a lot of content tonight. Thank you so much for everyone's time.
Oh, if
And
anyone needs me tomorrow, I'm so sorry. The office is closed for the weather, so please call my cell or email me. I'm still working, but if you call the office, I won't be there. So, and neither will Sue, I hope.
okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:38. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Carol has been aye. Jody?
Aye.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And just a reminder, any more thoughts on Hale, just get them to me by Wednesday morning. I'd appreciate it. I will tell you that these discussions have been very, very similar in the executive sessions. And the date's going to be a battle.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one question? I know everybody wants to leave, so I don't even
Yeah.
want to answer, but like, is the position of the town of Dover yes on Hale? Or are we still thinking about it as a leader, is the Board of Selectmen, who's the deciding factor here on whether this goes to town meeting, a yes?
Well, it's going to go to town meeting.
Okay.
Just don't know which town meeting, right?
Right.
I'd love to see a land use town meeting in the fall, where we could talk housing, we could talk land use, we can talk Hale, but it's not going to happen. So I think, come March 6th, when Dave Haviland is an official member of the Board of Selectmen, there'll be 3. I'm assuming, unlike the community center where they sort of took a pass and let the building committee take the brunt of approvals and so forth. I think, yeah, absolutely, to your point, Jody, this is a selectmen's, there's nothing, it's sort of like 46 Springdale. I mean, we took a
Right.
position on that, and this is a $10 million thing
They
that
have to take a position.
the
Yeah.
selectmen, I mean, John Jeffries has been the lead person on
Yeah.
this, okay, from a board standpoint. So I'm assuming that they will take a vote to support it, and I assuming it will be their presentation.
And by the way, that's another point I would give them. People are going to bring up 46 Springdale.
Yeah.
For
Yep.
sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay.
Okey doke. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.